There you are. Oh, I thought we'd have to do the show without you, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
Podcasting will be a thrill. Grandpa and chill, grandson and friends. Podcasting Grandpa and chill will be a thrill, grandson and friends. With your hosts, Grandpa Barton, Brandon Fox, Phines Jackson, and Sierra Dawes. This is Grandpa and Chill.
Hi, everybody. You're listening to another episode of Grandpa and Chill. I'm Brandon Fox. I'm on with my amazing producer,
Sierra Dawes.
my millennial co-host, as always, the hilarious
Phines.
my blood relative. Love him very much. He doesn't look a day over 81.
Grandpa.
Today we have a really special guest, Gramps Jeffrey. He's an author, seems like a super, super cool person, and rare treat, we have another grandfather. He's a grandfather as well. So, yeah, happy to have him on.
Welcome.
Hi, Gramps Jeffrey.
Hey, I'm in, right?
You're live.
Yeah. You made it.
Good,
Yeah,
good.
it's a rare treat having another grandfather on the line. So, Grandpa, this is Gramps.
Yeah, I don't feel alone now. This is nice.
That's right. I'm sure we have plenty of shared experiences.
Sweet. We were just telling our audience that you are an author. You have several grandchildren, I believe, right?
Yeah, I've got six.
Wow.
We have three of my daughters. Each one has two kids. So I've got 6 of them.
Amazing. And then I guess my first thought or question is just how'd you come up with the pen name Gramps Jeffrey?
Well, when kids were being born, I figured, what's going to separate me from being grandpa or granddad and all that? And I figured Gramps is easy to say because kids start with the G pretty fast. So I came up with the Gramps. And then Jeffrey happens to be my middle name. And and the way I spell it is Jeffrey, which is, I guess, the most unusual way. I always thought it was regular, but I've been married a long time, and my wife still can't spell my middle name right. So I figured if I put it on a book, maybe she'll actually know who I am, and that's how we came up with Gramps Jeffrey.
So cool. Yeah. Grandpa, do you have any questions about the grandfather experience? I'm super into getting into that.
You're talking to me, Brandon?
Yeah.
Oh, do I have anything I want to talk about?
Yeah.
My experience?
You could have a contest of who likes your grandkids more. I don't know.
I have 3 daughters and I have 3 grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And I'm noticing your looks like a very nice place that you live at, Gramps Jeffrey. I like your fireplace, and it looks real nice.
Oh, thank you very much. Live here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Love it. Been here for 25 years. It's a great place.
It looks real modern.
So why don't I kind of tell you why I wrote the book? Maybe that'll help us. But living this past year in the pandemic, caused by this COVID-19 isolation, except for being with family, it gave me a special time to kind of watch and interact with the grandkids. And that in itself was what a trip that kind of was. All 6 kids have different personalities. The one thing they do have in common is a sense of curiosity and how excited they get when they actually do accomplish something. Watching them grow up year to year and how they interact with each other really is the basis for this book. Kind of like what goes through a toddler's mind that the parents are so desperate to kind of understand. When does a toddler understand the difference between me and us? And this book kind of explores how the family finds out together. As a baby boomer, And Gramp, oh, I expect you're one too. Trying to understand how the world has evolved since I was 3 years old. It's also kind of part of this story of the book. When you think about it, my parents didn't have cell phones. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have remotes. They didn't have cable TV. None of that stuff. In fact, when I think about remotes, I call them clickers. When I was a little kid, I was the remote. My dad would say, "Go change the channel. You do it." And so, we were the remotes when we were little kids. And my parents' definition of discipline was just so much different than I see what's going on with kids today. And it's evolved. We taught our kids, and then they start teaching their kids what they're doing. And so, is today a better time for kids to grow up? I'll let you guys kind of answer that question. I think it is. And then, how are we treating them compared to how we were treated? I wrote this book to read to these grandkids. The reaction really, to me, has been pretty invaluable. As you watch them and understand Jordan's journey to learn right from wrong, you can see the older kids have gone through that same dilemma. So you see the older kids kind of say, yeah, I've kind of gone through that. And, the younger kids don't quite understand yet the concept of sharing. The whole experience for me in pulling this together while the kids were through the COVID has been priceless. So that's kind of the reason I wrote the book.
Did you, so you had the ability to quarantine with your whole extended family, your grandkids, during the pandemic?
Well, what's interesting is I had a couple of them here that live in Arizona, a couple live in, the kids live in Austin, Texas, and a couple in Orlando. And one of them was born in Orlando, and it took me almost a year before I actually got to see him. But was able to, they came in, the ones from Texas came in for a while and stayed with us. So I had a chance to interact with the four of them all the time to kind of do that. And that was really the basis of this book. And, you kind of get together and you say, how do the parents of the day raise their kids versus when Grandpa and I were kids? I don't know if you had this experience, Grandpa, but I was afraid of my dad. I mean, he had a little strap. He would chase us around the kitchen table and the dining room table to make sure we did it, that we were kept in line. He had this paddle he had from his fraternity days, and he'd bring out that paddle. My brother Larry and I, we knew what was coming. In fact, at one point in time, he had us so intimidated that when my parents weren't home, we went into his closet, we grabbed the paddle, and it was fall in the north, and the leaves were on the ground, and we took the paddle, we buried it underneath the leaves. Then it snowed the next day, and that spring, the paddle disappeared. It was like a miracle to me. But our kids aren't doing that to their children today. They're not chasing them around the table with a strap or chasing them with the paddle. So this is a whole different world. Is it better? It probably is. Did you have that kind of experience, Grandpa?
Well, it sounds like what you're talking about today is considered child abuse, almost, with the strap and the paddle and this and that. Actually, my natural father passed away when I was only 5, and he was a little tough, but my mother remarried a lovely man, and I don't remember him ever acting on me physically at all. He was just a mild-mannered person with me, not with, his business people, but he was just very nice that way. So I never really had that experience. But in camp, I do remember, as a camper, that if you broke the rules, they would paddle some of the kids. I do recall that. So my personal experience.
Oh, yeah, even I remember, even going through high school, they had paddle. If you were in bad, you got paddled. But that doesn't happen today. And that's probably good. That's the way that kids are evolving and how we get to do that with them. But, when you think about kids and what our influence is as grandpas, is we do have a chance to make their world better. If one of the reasons that I wrote this book because I wanted to read this book to them. And you think about it, reading to kids today has all kinds of values. One value is it helps you bond with the kid. You get the chance to spend time together. It usually comes sometimes alone. It gives you a chance to really work with the kids and talk to them. Reading helps support listening skills. In today's world, as we all get older and so forth, we know how important listening is. When you're a kid, you may not know that, but when if you're reading a book to your child or your grandchild, it helps them to listen. And that again helps build them and make that self-confidence that they have. It helps with their cognitive and language development. So they learn words, they question words, you kind of explain words to them. And as importantly, when it's all said and done, when you're sitting and reading a book to a child, it helps with the attention span. It helps them to kind of concentrate and so forth. So we as grandparents can influence that by just reading to our kids and helping them understand the benefits of reading up to the kids.
Gramps, I want to ask you a question. Do you have the same, I'll call it a value system or system as your children have towards their children?
That's an interesting question in that we as grandparents, what can we do to help influence that? The first thing we have to do is we have to support our kids, whether we agree with how they're raising their kids or not. You got to support it, because the message that the kids get is that the grandparents are really helping to support those kids. I think the value system that I created with my kids, I can see it going through to their kids. So you're right. It is how you teach. It seems to be working. So I would say so. How about, what do you think? Does that same thing happen to you?
Pretty much, yeah. I would agree with that. And what about the educational system as far as discipline and so forth? Are you in line with the way that the educational system, the schools and whatever, how they handle discipline and value system, their value system?
Yeah, but what's interesting is it's great being a grandparent rather than the parent in today's world. In other words, like I just had a couple of them at our house for an overnight the last couple of days. And it was a lot of fun, but it wore me out. I mean, when they went for their nap, I went for my nap. It's just, the great thing about grandkids today is you give them back. You have a couple of days with them. It's a fun time. It's a great time. You did all kinds of things, but, they wear you out. And so that's why I think you and I don't have kids. It's the younger generation has to have the kids because they can do all that. They can keep up with them. So we have to support our kids in how they discipline their kids. But again, I even find I'm a little different than my wife. I mean, like for instance, my wife's a disciplinarian and I'm not really that today. Example would be her philosophy is let's eat breakfast and then watch cartoons. And my philosophy is, well, why don't we eat breakfast and watch cartoons at the same time? That's a great experience. So that's the conflict that we have maybe with the kids, and that's the way it is.
What is the age range with your grandchildren?
My oldest just turned 9 yesterday. That's Olivia. She's the dancer in the book. And the youngest just was 1 year old 3 months ago. So it goes from 1 to 9.
Yeah, because you appear to me to be somewhat younger than I am. My grandkids are, well, Brandon's the oldest, and he's 25, I believe, right, Brandon?
Yeah, about to be 26.
Yeah.
26, August 29.
Well, what's interesting is, through this whole COVID thing, how do you keep in touch with them? How do they remember who you are? Because, it's really easy when you're out of their lives, they forget who you are. And what's interesting that I found is the boys in my family
Love your ringtone.
are the ones. the boys in my family are the younger ones. If they're into dinosaurs, I don't know why or how, but that's a big thing in their lives. And so, one of the great things that they can do when they're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, and they talk about their dinosaurs, they're teaching me. I mean, I don't know. They know 10 names of these dinosaurs, and I don't know any of them. But they can tell me. All I know is there's little ones, big ones, and the ones that you eat. They tell you exactly who they are and what they do. So one of the things that I did during this whole COVID thing to keep my kids involved that were in Texas and in Florida was we started a whole program where we would take our dinosaurs, and we had half a dozen or so of these dinosaurs, and every night we put them someplace different in the house. So one night they were in the refrigerator eating all the blueberries and the strawberries. The next night they were in the sink with my wife as she was doing dishes, and they had soap on their noses and they were helping do the dishes. Another night they were doing the laundry. Another night they were going up the steps. Another night they were playing the piano. So what happened was, because these kids are so, this is an interest of theirs, the dinosaurs, is they started calling us every night. And they were telling their parents, let's call Gramps. And they always ask for Gramps because I'm the one that's doing the dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. So when Bubby answered the phone, they said, where's Gramps? Where's Gramps? Where are the dinosaurs? And so we had the dinosaurs in 50 different places all throughout the house, and every night that got the kids to call us. And so there's always something that you can relate to with your grandkids, because you got to keep involved. Because out of sight, out of mind, as much as we think as grandparents that they're thinking about us all the time, they're not. So you've got to kind of insert yourself to be part of their lives. And, you guys are doing this thing together. That's a great way for the two of you to be part of each other's lives. Otherwise, you could be out doing your own thing at different age groups.
I'm super curious. 1 to 9 now is a really interesting age because, and I'd love Phines and Sierra's input, but like our generation, 20s, whatever, is sort of the last. It was like the in-between before smartphones and everybody had technology in their pocket 24/7, and I mean, I'm talking to my grandfather from a different city. It's pretty crazy. Are they hooked? Do you communicate a lot via the phones? How is that?
They've got their iPads, and they are very busy on these iPads. 2 to 3 hours a day. You can see that. Now, the question is, and when they call us through smartphones that we just talk and see each other, and so we talk just like we're doing now on the smartphones. But what's very interesting about the technology that they are involved in, and they all are. I mean, they know more than I ever knew. And again, because if you think about it, we never had that stuff when we were growing up. I think they're making it smarter. I think these kids of today are getting smarter. They are smarter than we were. And because I think this technology just makes it wild. I mean, to give you an example, Levi, who just turned 6, he was the one in my book that really loves sea creatures. I mean, he would go and tell us, he knows all the names of the sea creatures. I don't know all those names. He tells us exactly what they do, what they eat, who they swim with, and where they are. That was his thing. But now that he's a year older, he's into Minecraft. And so, he says to me yesterday, he says, I like sea creatures, but I'm into Minecraft. Can we go ahead and rewrite the book so that, we're not really concentrating on sea creatures and we can start talking about Minecraft? And I said, no, we can't. The book's already out. We've already done that. But then he sits down and he says, let me show you about Minecraft. And for almost 2 hours over the last couple of days, he is just rattling off all these. This kid's 6 years old. He's rattling off all these things and what his adventures and what these guys do, much like he was doing earlier with the sea creatures when he was younger. And so I am convinced that this whole electronic world that we're exposing our kids is making them smarter. Now, what we have to do as parents and grandparents is make sure they're not on this stuff for 6-8 hours a day, because then they miss everything else. You got to take them outside. You got to kick the balls with them. And that's what grandparents can do. We're the ones who can take them out and teach them how to play a little soccer. They can teach them how to play a little tennis. How to do some things that they can do that they just don't get involved in, or their parents are too tied up doing it. So that's the influence that grandparents can have on the generation. They're going to be they're smarter than we are. They really are. On all these different subjects, they all know more than I do. But that's pretty good, because now you're teaching them to communicate with you now, and that communication you have with them, that just gives another aspect, because when we're long and gone, how are they going to remember us? And we've got to lead the way with letting them teach us and listen, because that listening still comes back to them.
My grandsons were pretty much involved in video games, and I feel badly that I never really picked up my knowledge about them. So I kind of lost something there, not being able to enjoy
Do you really?
it
I
with
never
them.
knew that.
You didn't.
So Brandon, why don't you teach them how to play video games now?
That phase is over, but
Oh, it is. So what are you involved in now?
Computers still, acting,
Podcasting.
Podcasting, yeah. Obsession with entertainment.
They're doing it together.
Phines here, I'd love your thoughts or any.
Yeah, I got questions. Let me start from the top. I guess I had a joke about the paddling thing. I was going to make a joke about where you keep the paddle now? Is it behind your back instead of out and about with your parents? But no, I guess I wanted to know about your grandchildren that were stars. How do they feel about being stars in your book? How are they taking all that?
Well, the oldest one, Olivia, again, the one that just turned 9, she reads the book to them. Okay, so it's at a point where she can read to them. And it happens that I had the 2 from Texas here a couple weeks ago. And the little one, Grace, who's turning 3, as Olivia was reading the book, she says, "That's me, that's me." And then her brother, Jackson, says, "Yeah, that's me. I like that. That's me." So I think, again, most of them are pretty young, but I think they're trying to get a feel for it, because what we did, the pictures in the book, which are drawn and so forth, are based on actual photographs that I took. So it's all based on, they can remember, like the front page of the book. Here's one right here. This is Levi and Jordan taking a bath. This actually, Levi's dad said, "That's my bathtub." Yeah. So,
Super cute.
This is what it's all based on. So yeah, I think that they feel like they're part of it.
Do you have an artist that you work with to come up with the drawings and so forth?
Yeah, I can't draw a straight line, so that's the creativity I've got to rely on somebody else to do. I showed her the pictures and she did the drawings. Yeah, I can't draw. I wish I could. But I can't.
Who is the book geared for? I mean, age-wise.
The book really is geared for the parents. In other words, it's a battle of how do kids when they're actually learning how to share. Because anybody's had a kid that's 2, 3, 4 years old, they do not like to share. I mean, it's any family. It's not just my family. It's just about any family there is. So it's a dilemma of how do you get your kids to really start to interact and being from the me, all about me, to about us. And so it's really geared for parents to read to kids. And because, what happens in the end of the book is they all give everything to the homeless shelters because of all the things they went through. And that's really who it's for. It's for parents to read it to their kids. And what's interesting, again, with the kids being from 1 to 9, they all look at the book a little bit differently. The younger ones are trying to understand, why they have to share this. And the older ones who've gone through this, are telling the younger ones, this is what you do to get along. And it happens that they say, we're cousins, so we've got to do this. But it doesn't have to be cousins to do this. It could be friends, neighbors, people at school. So that's what it's all about.
Unfortunately, not all adults learn that lesson in life.
Well, let's think about this, Grandpa. When do you actually learn how to share? Is it 3 years old? Is it 13 years old? 23? Maybe it's not until you're 63 that you learn how to share. But you're right. Adults still have to learn that lesson. So maybe we should read the book to them.
Yeah. This is back to the kids part, but did you get everyone in the book? Did you get all the grandbabies?
Yeah, they're all there.
You lucked out. What happens when there's more? What are you going to do? Write another book?
Well, all three of my daughters said there aren't going to be any more. So that's why I went ahead and wrote the book.
All right, that makes sense.
Wait, you have three daughters?
I have 3 daughters and 1 son. My son, who is, how old is he now? He's 42. He's a bachelor. He happens to be a detective in Boynton Beach, Florida, and he's married to his job. And so I think he's always been afraid to get married because when you're a cop, you're there one day, you may not be there.
He
next.
would probably know my stepson.
So he's the bachelor.
He would know my stepson probably.
Yeah.
My stepson has a very small business right across the street, I believe, from the police department in Boynton Beach.
In Boynton Beach?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Just let me know his name. I'm sure they would.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would.
David Karasik, and it's Superb Signs.
Okay. When I talk to him, I'll talk to him. So, but my 3 daughters got married, and each of them has 2 kids, and that's what they say they want, just 2.
Do you feel like you're just as close as with your son that didn't have any children, or?
Yeah. What's interesting is because of COVID, and again, his sister, one of his sisters lives in Orlando. He lives in Boynton Beach. He wasn't able to go to the birth either. And so 8 months after the youngest, his name was Baker, was born. So when we went there, my son came up. So that gave us a chance to really be together. Yeah. So the only time he's seen his nephew is when I'm there. So it just helps to do the whole bonding together. But again, the COVID is just something that happened and we had to live with. And hopefully going forward, nobody else has to live with this.
Yeah. Let's hope so.
Yeah, it makes it tough. I have a daughter who moved to Canada. She married a fellow in Canada a little over a year ago, and I couldn't visit with her because of this situation. She's asked me to come out or whatever, and she can't come back here. And unfortunately, we were going to go out there, and my wife doesn't have her passport right now. It expired, and it takes now like 12 to 16 weeks to get a passport. It's
right.
They have 1,900,000 applications right now.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask another question. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So you're talking about, you're afraid of your dad back in the day and you learning we to us. How'd you learn some of this stuff? If you were like, if you had so much fear of your parents, or where'd you learn all the compassion and empathy?
Well, everyone has got to admit that it takes a village to raise you. Okay? When you think back about it, how many people were involved in making you who you are today? Aunts and uncles, and grandparents, cousins, neighbors, friends. So your influence really is based on more than one person as you're growing up. I happen to be very lucky that my parents had brothers and sisters who we always hung out on weekends. So my influence was, my uncles, and I had some very strong uncles that I had a lot of respect for, and watched how they handled themselves and were professional enough and raised their kids. So I think that any one of us can look back and say, we were influenced by many people. And so, that great book that Hillary Clinton wrote, which was, It Takes a Village, It's a true thing. It takes a village to raise any of us. And again, it goes back to, we're talking about grandkids. That's the same thing with the grandkids. We as grandpas have to influence them. Obviously, the grandmothers are having major influences on them, and their aunts and their uncles and so forth. So it's taking a village to raise these kids too. Now, the village is a little different than when I was growing up, with all these iPads and electronics and things that they are exposed to that we aren't. But again, it's better, as the world evolves and as generation after generation passes it down, these kids are getting better. They're getting smarter. They're getting more compassionate. This whole generation is much more compassionate than when I grew up. I mean, just look how, there is working to work better together in this younger generation than in the baby boomers and so forth. So it's an evolution, and this evolution takes time, but we as grandpas can help influence that. And I see as we're getting older and we're reflecting and we're saying, okay, we're in their 60s and 70s. It's time for us to share now too. The message of the book was, when do you share? It's time for grandmas to share with their kids and their grandkids to influence them how to be better people.
Wow, that was great, because you answered my next question, which is like, it comes off a little at first to me like contradictory of like, my grandkids are so much smarter than me and more compassionate, and like all I'm like, so why do they need you, around? But then you're like able to answer of like, there's reasons that you have to offer, in your. I also give it to you for being so, at least in my eyes, like humble enough to be able to understand it takes a village, like I think so much, at least for me as a young person, I think I can do it all and expect to do it all. So I think, I don't know if you recognize it or not, but it seems very like humbling that you even understand that it takes a whole village, that it can't just be put on yourself, or at least that's what I'm taking away from it a little bit.
Yeah, and I look back on my career, and I'm sure Grandpa looks back on his career, and we were influenced by other people. There were people in our careers that either helped make us or break us. Whether you're working in a company and who influences and who doesn't. So, that's an experience that you guys are going through now as you're into different companies that you're involved in. Who in my company or who in my group is going to help me get to the next step? And it's just something you got to be thankful for, those that help you, because there's so many people that don't care and don't help, that are against you. But the ones that can help you in your career, reach out to them and just say thank you. That's all anybody really wants.
Gramps, just curious, what was your career?
Well, I've been in business all of my life. I started off in the retail business, in the department store business, and went into the discount store business, and then I started a company that went public called dollardays.com, which became the premier business-to-business site on the internet, where we sold in case quantity to small businesses all around the world, all 50 states, around 44 countries. Our customer base were the moms and the pops who are surviving, thriving as the chains. So we carried a little over 350,000 products on the site. If you walked into a Macy's or Target or Walmart,
can you repeat the name of that company? I didn't quite.
Oh, it's dollardays.com. It's a public company. You can find
dollardays.com.
And one of the I think one of the things that really influenced me is we became so dominant with keywords and phrases on the internet. We had thousands and thousands of words that were organically rated to 1, 2, and 3 on the internet, that when Katrina hit, the hurricane that was down in Louisiana and Mississippi, that when that hit, because we had so many keywords, all of a sudden we were getting these orders from nonprofit organizations, churches and schools, who were buying their products to help the underprivileged. I mean, underwear and socks and toothpaste and toothbrushes. And then when they opened up on the trailers, we were doing all the kitchen supplies and bedroom supplies and bathroom supplies. And so it opened up a whole world to us, knowing that the nonprofit world is underserved. And so today, 50% of the business comes from nonprofits, national, with the Salvation Army, the Gospel Rescue Missions, all the 4,000 Kiwanis clubs around the country use Dollar Days. So that really opened up our eyes and it changed the business. So it's probably today 50% of the business comes from nonprofits, 50% comes from from small businesses who are surviving, thriving as the chains. So I wrote a book back then for the small businesses to figure out how to compete. It's called The Secrets of Retail and How to Beat Walmart. I got one right here. Secrets of Retail and How to Beat Walmart. And it's a 15 chapters, a step-by-step guide of how to compete against the big guys. How to hire people, how to find products, where to go, and so forth. So that did that. And it was area Huffington read my book and asked me to start to contribute to the Huffington Post. So I've written over 100 articles for the Huffington Post on small businesses, nonprofits, homeless, and schools and all that. And so that kind of, in the back, it helped me influence this children's book because, what it ends up is the kids are helping the nonprofits, and when you step back and think about it, when you get our age, you're done with your career, or you're winding down your career, what do you do to leave a legacy? And what you can do is help the nonprofits, help those that are less fortunate than yourself. And that's one of the messages in the book, is how do kids do that? How do families do that?
Did you ever think that a company, I know I'm getting away from your book right now, but did you ever think a company like Amazon or Walmart would become as, prevalent in the business as they are?
No, I never did. But they've done it. And so now you've got to appreciate it. What they have built is pretty amazing. Now, along the way, during the 1980s and 1990s, Walmart wiped out lots of moms and pops. They really hurt the independent entrepreneurs. But what's happened is all of that's evolved, and today is almost as good a time for entrepreneurs to open businesses that support Amazon and Walmart. I mean, think about it. If you go onto Amazon today, there are a million independent people that are selling products on Amazon. In fact, there's a whole industry that has popped up over the last couple of years of investment banks that are buying these independent people who have started to sell on Amazon and pulling them together to become another company. So, much like Walmart destroyed the small businesses of yesterday, Amazon is helping to create some. So the opportunity for entrepreneurs to go out there and create something in this world today may even be better than ever before. And the COVID may have even helped people to figure out, I've got to take that shot. When you're an entrepreneur, when you think about it, only 10% of America are true entrepreneurs. The ones, a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs and think about it, but to have the guts to go ahead and take that step where you go out and start something on your own, that's only 10% of us. But I think in today's world, with what's happening, this really has opened it up for this latest generation. So, Brandon, your generation should be out there opening up businesses and going after it, because I think there's a real opportunity today.
Brandon?
Yeah, so much. It's interesting for me. I've always been drawn to more creative endeavors, sort of at a maybe cost to financial opportunities or paths, that kind of thing, which is totally cool. Whereas you're someone who's done both, right? You're a writer as well as sort of been involved in all of this business. Which one came first? And if you had to pick a real passion, what is it?
When I was a little kid, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. All my relatives were, they happened to be, my dad and uncle were in the scrap business. Okay? And Then my dad married a woman whose family was also in the scrap business. They were all doing their own stuff. They're entrepreneurs out there creating their own business. So from an early age, I saw what it was like to run your own thing, to do your own thing. And so that's the good influences from the village. They let you go out and make yourself and do your own thing. So for 20 years, I worked in corporations to learn how to do it, and I finally did it on my own. So I would say that obviously was my first passion, was how to create something, be an entrepreneur, and build it. And then, as that evolved, and I learned that I could make a difference by writing Secrets of Retailing, How to Beat Walmart, that creative part kind of came into it. So it's secondary.
that first book was more about giving back. Like you felt like you amassed this knowledge and then just wanted to help.
Yeah, in a sense, what was happening is I was getting like 30 phone calls a week from our customers saying, "How do I do this? What do I do that?" And so I said, "Well, let me write a book about that. Let me kind of pull it together so that it'd be easy for everyone to understand." So that's how that kind of evolved. I mean, I was so busy trying to build a business that I wasn't thinking about writing a book until people were asking me, "What do I need to do?" And so that's how that evolved.
How does it feel? This is maybe a different question, but how does it feel to have had a dream as a little kid of being an entrepreneur and becoming so successful at it, and sort of like being on the other side of that?
Well, you've got to realize, and any entrepreneur will tell you this, there were as many downs as there were ups. I mean, there were as many times where I didn't think I was going to make it as there were, we finally made it. And it came back to, we kind of talked about this early on. It came back to who influences who in your life. Who do you trust? What people that you can listen to that can help you grow, whether it's your personal life, your business life, your social life. Who do you really believe in? And I could see in my journey, because it wasn't all roses. I wish it was. It was influenced by people who took the time to reach out to me and help me. And so I guess as grandpas today, we take that experience, because you go through 40, 50 years of doing this kind of stuff, and you finally learn it. Whether it takes 20 or 30 or 40 years, you finally learn it. That's what we have to pass on to the next generation. Mm-hmm. That's why you hope that your kids that you wrote, that grandpa taught Brandon well, so Brandon can teach the next generation. You just hope for that. But now that we have a chance to sit back, we can help influence the youngest ones and maybe save them some grief that we may have done.
It seems, Gramps, that the most difficult decisions that you have to make, many times no one else can help you with. You almost have to make the decisions yourself. And,
Yeah, a perfect example is, who are you going to marry? Nobody else can influence that. That's your decision. And it could be a great decision or it could be a terrible decision. But you're right.
What is the program? There's a program for seniors that the government, the U.S. government, I think, operates, where you help small entrepreneurs. Are you familiar with that program?
Well, the Small Business Administration helps.
Yeah, but there's a name, and I can't recall it right now, but there's seniors that, have been in business, and and they go out, retired seniors who help small business. People with getting started in a business or growing it.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great program.
So have you had? Do you ever have your grandchildren together, where they kind of are all with you at one time, and it can get like a 3-ring circus,
Oh yeah. We were talking about how they wear you out. 2 wear you out. 6, you're gonna have to take twice as many naps.
I remember one time I took my 3 grandchildren, Brandon and his younger sister and brother, to a mall, and they were young kids, and they all ran off in different directions. One went up the escalator, and The other one ran to a different part of the store, and I was like going crazy because it was fairly crowded and a little scary. You know, we have those.
Well, you gotta, what's interesting is, kids take what you say to heart. Okay, they really do. So like, I was listening to one of your earlier shows where you guys are fetching about the cable guy and the printer and the health thing and all that, and I heard you guys cussing a little bit. Like, kids pick up on that right away. If you start to, we can have these conversations with adults, but if you start complaining about the cable guy, I can guarantee you that your child, in the next couple of hours, is going to start complaining about the cable guy. If you say a bad word, I guarantee it's coming right back at you. So that's one of the things that we have to be real careful of as the older people is, what we share with each other, because they just absorb it. They just pull it right out. So yeah, that's part of that influence of being a grandparent. Is just sometimes you gotta be careful.
I don't know if Phines or Sierra have this, but I mean, a lot of like very big memories for me are sort of some of the negative ones were adults acting out, or even like having a moment where it didn't seem like a big deal to them, but it left such a impression on me, yeah, even if it's just like a joke or whatever, that being a little kid and then having someone much more mature, I don't know.
Oh yeah, and I'll give you an example. Yesterday, my wife was trying to get Levi to do something, so she made him eat something he didn't like to eat. And so, she actually couldn't do his next event until he ate what she said you have to eat. And so he went home to his mother, and his mother says, well, how was your couple days with your grandparents? And all he remembered was, Bubby made me eat something I didn't like. That was the whole that was it.
My grandpa tried to do that to me once when I was really little. He had made it was either eggs and ham, or it was eggs and the eggs just looked off to me in my 6-year-old mind. And I was like, I don't want to eat this. And he's like, you've got to eat your breakfast. And I said, I just don't want to, Grandpa. And he's like, well, you know what? You're going to have to sit here and eat. You're going to have to sit here until it's gone. And I was like, okay. And I sat there for an hour. And then finally he's like, well, just go. And I was like, okay, fine. I don't care. I think it's also kind of in maybe how you, going back to maybe what children pick up. And I've seen this other places before, not just experience, but being able to convey to children, what's almost important or not, what's worth your energy, kind of. I've seen stories where kids will fall, or they'll scrape a knee and they're not really hurt, but they just didn't expect to fall. And if a kid falls, what do? Do you rush over to him and go oh my God, are you okay? Oh my goodness. Oh, Jeffrey, or, Jameson, whatever. Do you do that? Or do you just go, hey, you good? And they'll be so then so then you're kind of prompting them to think maybe okay, is this really bad? Am I really hurt? No, I'm okay. And then they can just go on with, playing or running or whatever they were doing to hurt themselves in the first place.
Absolutely. It's the mindset that you set in kids. It's you can either foster a mindset where they take everything rigidly and they take it all to heart, or you can give them that mindset, where life is okay. Don't worry about it. It'll get better. So you're absolutely right. But you're talking about your grandpa and the food. I just lived that yesterday. So I think it's in every family.
Well, it sounds, Gramps, like your grandchildren have the advantage of growing up in a stable type environment, which is very good for children. Not all children have that kind of an upbringing in life. And what do we do in those situations where we have children that grew up in broken homes and various situations? And not necessarily that a broken home might be the worst thing, but if, as long as at least one of the parents really care and take care of them. But if they have just a bad situation, how do we help these children?
Yeah, it goes back to, because I'm sure you've experienced it, and I've got that in my family too, is it takes the brothers and the sisters and the uncles and the aunts and the other influencers to make up for what they're missing. If they're missing a father, it takes the grandfathers to step in, or the brothers or the uncles. And so that's why it's important to I know that every family's got issues. Let's not kid ourselves. There's every family. Not everybody gets along. Everybody believes in each other. But you've got to. If you're missing a parent, or if you've got a bad parent, the village has to step in. We have to. It's just we got to do that. Unfortunately, not every family has that ability. So that's the other reason why the nonprofits, we've got to step in with the nonprofits, helping them to help those that need the help. That's really, we as a society, that's a societal problem. And we as a society have got to step in. It's easy for us just to close our doors and not pay attention to our neighbors, our family. But I think as I grew older, that kind of hit more home to me than when I was younger. It's up to this baby boomer generation to step in and help bring along the next bunch of generations.
Do you find?
I agree that it's not all ivory tower and families. That's not the families aren't all the Nelsons. I don't know if you're familiar with that sitcom from years ago.
Yeah. Exactly.
Do you find that your kids are turning into you and your wife, and raising in a similar style, or are they very different? Or
they're different. I think that as I look at how disciplined we were with our kids, I can see that they're rebelling against that a little bit, and are not as disciplined with their kids. And it works. I mean, they still have their time out with their kids, and they still, make sure that they're in line. But I think that our kids learn from us and are taking their own approach. But that's okay. I mean, again, as grandparents, we have to support our kids. If that's the decision what they want to do, then let's just support it. That's part of the evolution of our society.
Mm-hmm. I think you point out a good thing. The time that you spend with your grandchildren is important. To be with them and enjoy, have a life with them to some degree. It's very nice.
Yeah, because you think about it. A few generations back, our age group wasn't around. We were gone already. This whole generation was gone. And so now that we're able to live a little bit longer, we've got to take advantage.
Yeah, I'm older now than my grandparents were than my grandfathers when they passed away. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you feel pretty good about that, right?
So far.
Grandpa Jeffrey, do you have Gramps Jeffrey? I'm sorry. Do you have a lot of friends your age?
That's an interesting question. Because I look back and I think, well, how many real true friends do you have when you hit our age? And if I can say I have half a dozen, that's a lot. Okay, but you would think that you would have to. I'd much rather have 30.
Yeah.
But I don't.
It doesn't count with the if you're in line at Whole Foods and all the people there. That I'm talking about like real friends. No, I'm joking. But yeah. I wonder because you speak so young, like how good the young people are. I'm like, I wonder if you're hit with your friends that are your age. I wonder if you're like, here comes this guy with a skateboard.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons that I don't have as many friends as I really would like to have is I moved around a lot, and so it's different than when you grow up. Like I happen to be going back for my high school reunion this weekend, so I'm flying from Arizona back to Ohio.
Wow!
And so I haven't seen these people in 50 years. Okay, but I decided to do it for the first time because I wanted to see who they were. Now, plenty of those friends grew up in the small town I was in. They're still there. They have a lot more friends than I do. Just because when you move around and you change, those things happen. And you have the friends that you have hold on for a few years and then they wane. So to answer your question, I don't have as many friends as I wish I had.
Okay. At least that gives me some solace for my future.
Gramps, do you have anything on the horizon other than the books that you've already published? Are you thinking about any future books?
Yeah, I'm thinking about possibly turning this into a series. I don't want to turn 3. I don't want to turn 4.
I don't want to turn 26.
Because, there you go. Because things do happen in stages. You see kids evolve, but you're right. I don't want to turn 13. I don't want to turn 23. So there's that possibility because we all go through these times in our life. We have to make decisions, and we have to learn, and we have to interact with other people who help teach us. So that's what I'm thinking.
Did it go by quick now that you're at a more mature age? Does it feel like you're a kid very shortly ago?
Yeah, you're right. It does. And I wish the only thing that's changed is my body just doesn't move as fast as it used to. And so I wish I could go out there and do everything I used to. It's just a little bit slower, but it goes by fast. So I guess my advice to the young people in this room are enjoy it. Take it in. Absorb it. Because before you know it, you're going to be ready to retire.
I have a question that I don't anticipate you'll answer. I don't think it's even fair to ask, but do you have any favorite grandchild?
Why would you ask that?
Well, I'm just being...
Do you, Grandpa?
What's interesting is that each one of these kids have their own personalities. They really do. And they have different interests and different ways of approaching life. So at this point in my life, I look at them as a team. It's my team. And so I don't have a favorite right now.
What about you, Grandpa?
You like your team?
What about me?
Yeah. What about you?
Well, you're all different. I'm going to put it that way.
You just copied. You copied his answer.
I'm not a team.
Word for word.
Not a team.
My grandkids bring me a lot of joy in life, and they really do. I think my life would be much more empty if I didn't have my grandchildren. I have all 3 of my grandchildren are from my one daughter, and love them all.
Yeah, it really is. When you think about it, they do take a lot of your mind. You're thinking about them all the time. So it's a real blessing to have grandkids.
What was the best period of your guys' life? 20s, 30s, 0, like Gramps and Grandpa?
Grandpa, you go first.
I don't really think of any particular time as being the best. I mean, when you're young, you have extraordinary health. You're physically in your best shape when you're young, but I can't answer that question because I think that all parts of your life there's ups and downs all the time in life.
The way I look at it is when I was in my early 20s, I had the whole world in front of me, and I was athletic at the time. I was having fun, getting all kinds of friends, was building on my career, was successful in what I was doing. So that was a great time in my life. And then everything evolved. And now, in my 50s and 60s, it's a good time too, because, I've accomplished a lot of the things that I wanted to in my 20s. And, I'm a happy guy. And that's what it takes. When it's all said and done, at the end, when you're retiring or getting ready, what's your mindset? Are you happy? Yeah, there are a lot of mistakes throughout the years that we all made. But when it's all said and done, are you happy with your life? And I have to say that I am thrilled with my life.
Gramps, you mentioned that you were athletic when you were young. Any particular sport or sports?
I was big into tennis. I love tennis. I like basketball, playing basketball and baseball. So those are the things that I really love.
Do you still partake in any of those things today?
Yes, but on a much slower scale.
All right.
So, playing tennis now and playing doubles, rather than singles. And so that's and at our age we can play golf. What's interesting is I'm left-handed. In a small town that I grew up in, they didn't have any left-handed golf clubs, so I learned how to play golf right-handed. It's the only thing I do in my life right-handed is play golf. But I do putt left-handed because I, went to little putt-putts when we were kids, and I was able to do that left-handed. But otherwise, and you got to get out there. You and I both live where the weather is great, so we've got to get out there and take advantage.
What's your handicap?
It's pretty high.
More than 18?
Yeah, about that. How about yours?
The same. I haven't really played golf for many years, but I did play in college. But I haven't played for.
Oh.
I haven't played really since I was a young man.
That's great. What do you guys do? Well, you're in your 20s. What do you guys do for fun?
Try not to.
I like to go
catch the
outside.
plague.
Go ahead. Oh, try to catch the plague. I like to go outside. I like to learn new things and read and draw and nothing too crazy for a young person, but I like it. I mean, what's cool is since we both are doing the art thing, I think it's cool to see someone still doing art at a older age and still like excited about it. You pulled that book out and showed it to us like it was like your baby, which it is. But it's just really nice to see that that much delight is still, you never get tired of making your art. I'm sure seems like it.
Right. Brandon, what do you like to do?
I love comedy. I love going to comedy shows, and I really like. Let me see. I was just in LA. I was playing a lot of basketball in my free time. I'm not good, but it's very fun. So,
but you're great at working out, Brandon, because I've been going to the gym with you when you were younger, and you have a lot of endurance.
Yeah, and I'm trying to be fit, Gramps. So.
Keep working on it because you gotta keep that up all the way when you get our age.
I'm taking a break right now. I'm going to a back doctor on Friday, actually. So.
Ooh,
yeah,
quite young.
It's terrifying. What advice would you have for people in our generation to be as well? I guess you said happy, but as sort of youthful as you are.
First thing I would say is get off your phone. I mean, devote. I have no problem with being on the phones 2-3 hours a day, but when you're on your phones for 6 to 8 hours a day, that takes away a lot of the other things that you're doing. So, kind of diversify yourself, and do some of the basic things that the old timers do. Reading is good. Reading is the best thing you can do. When I think about reading to these kids, I say, you got to think about why do you read to kids, and how do you do it?
Because they can't read.
Yeah. But so when you sit down with one of these grandkids, the first thing you should be saying to them is, what do you think is going to happen in this book? Okay, because you got to get these kids involved. So you want to you want to sit down and when you read a book, and you should be saying the same thing to yourself when you're reading a novel. What's going to happen in this book? And then once you've got the kids into the book and reading it, you can say, who are the characters in the books? What is the setting? You got to get them involved. You got to be asking the kids, what's going on, rather than just say, here's a book, I'm going to read it to you. And then as the book goes on, and again, you guys should be asking yourself too as you read your books, is, what does anything in this book sound familiar to you? Is this your life? Is this the other life? And then when the book's done, what was your favorite part of the book and why was it that? So you got to kind of view life the same way. If when you get off your phones for a few hours, pick up a book. Read a book, because there's just so much knowledge that Grandpa and I are learning something every day.
That's true.
I think we should know it all.
Are you? Do you have any fear about anything about the future of our lives, as far as our country, the situation in the world today? Do you have any concern or worry about those things? And how would you handle that with your grandchildren?
I'm sure that you all have read that our lifespan has gone down a year or two right now.
Right.
This whole COVID thing has caused us to live less, as a generation. That's a scary thing. I mean, this is the first time that's happened since, World War II. And so that should step in. What's causing that? Well, obviously, COVID's had a major effect, but it's still cancer and so heart attacks and things like that. So we're not living as long as we thought we were going to live, and we're not living as long as people 5 years ago lived. So that's something to put into your head and figure out why. I am concerned. I am concerned that that the world is not getting along, and that there's going to be some kind of crisis in the world. I think that you can kind of even share that with little kids, because they hear it. The news is on in everybody's house. Whether you think your kids are listening to the news or not, they are. I mean, when we're watching the news, I can see the kids perk up when they see the fires that are going on. What's that all about? They see the buildings being destroyed. What's that all about? They see war. So we've got to be very honest and upfront with these kids about what's going on today. So those are my concerns.
It's concerning to me that the type of advertising that you see today on TV for medications and drugs and this and that when I was a child, I don't recall having seen that. Of course, there were only 3 networks when I was very young, but
Right.
Now there's hundreds. But they're seeing about this kind of health problem and that kind of health problem, and they have to grow up being exposed to all these different issues, which rather than just being able to be a child, living like a child without all those worries.
Right, and they see them on their phones too, and they see them on their iPads too. So you're right. I like to say it's our job to protect them, but I don't think we can.
No, you really can't.
It's weird to me because not even cousins or anything. I don't have any small children in my immediate family or life or whatever. But to imagine going through the last year and a half in elementary school or even younger, I wonder how traumatizing it is, or if it's easy because you can't even really comprehend what's going on.
What's interesting about kids is they do have short memories, except for the times when, Sierra's grandpa made a wheat cake. She remembers that, but they do have short memories, and they can evolve. And the reason I say that is, my kids have had people in their lives die, and then after a while they forget about them. They move on, and it's so they do have short memories. So hopefully, this will get over quickly. But I know they're going to remember mask up or mask off. I mean, that's something that they're going to.
Sorry to interrupt. I'm just I'm
I'm
really curious. How do you explain that to them? You said people have died in their lives. Like, do you straight up just say, or?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, they know the dinosaur eats another dinosaur, so
Right.
he's gone. You know, they know that the shark eats the fish, so they're gone. So I think if you can kind of keep that into the perspective of what they understand, you've got to share that with them.
Do you frame it in so far as they're in heaven, like another place, or how is that?
Yeah, I mean, heaven is. There's so many books out there that talk about heaven, and most kids have read something that has to do with that. But yeah, that's the way to go after it.
That's
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
interesting to me. Yeah.
I kind of miss not seeing Sierra tonight.
You're
Yes, I do,
good.
honestly, yeah.
No, you're good. You're good.
How you doing,
It's
Sierra?
fine.
Got any thoughts, questions, anything?
I mean, the whole time we've been talking, I've just been like thinking back to like the first thing you said, Gramps Jeffrey, which was about, just the effect that reading has on children, like reading to them and how that feels and, everything about that. Because I remember when my dad used to read to me when I don't know how old I was. I was old enough to read, so I could have just been like, reading by myself, but he would sit with me and my brother, and we had these little like kid-sized recliner chairs, like kid-sized lazy boys, and we would sit in there, and he had like a normal person-sized one, and he would just sit and face us, and he would read these like, what are those? He would read these Judy Blume books to us, like the Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing and Fudgy or Fudge Frenzy, whatever all those were. And he would just read those to us. And I don't know how I probably was only like between like 6 and 8. Like I was very young, but I still remember that. And I remember how much fun I had and just hearing all the voices and all these crazy stories. And we would literally just be like falling over, like both of us just crying, laughing, listening to my dad tell these stories. And just the way that he would tell it was always so funny. And just like, because my dad is like very sarcastic and he like always has jokes. So it's just reading Judy Blume in like the dry, and like it goes from just dry to just like incredulous. And it was just like that does stick with me. So, there are definitely, kids do remember things. They do remember the negative stuff, but they definitely they will remember those like positive moments or those like special things that you do that, you might not even remember it one day, but they will.
If you were to recap this whole conversation we have, you just did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that really is the whole reason for my book and reading and relationships. I mean, you just recapped the whole thing. So thanks.
Yeah.
Gramps, I can run a business. I can write a business letter, but I don't have a flair for writing a novel or the type of books that you write. That takes a certain type of talent, doesn't it, to have a flair for writing where you can, paint a character or whatever.
It does, especially for children, for like a children's book, because it can be difficult to write for someone, especially someone that's younger than you. Like if you're not your target audience, like especially writing children's book, it's hard not to be like condescending, or like talking down to them. But, I read through it earlier today, and, you don't do that. It's clear, it's concise, and like I can get like the messages and like the lessons you're trying to teach. And, it's just a little wacky and fun with, some cute little grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's the best compliment I can get.
What's your process?
Yeah,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Did you might have answered this already. Did you have help or an editor, or is it just all you?
No, what really happened was I had my kids in from Texas. They were here for a month during COVID, and the kids here, and I was just watching them. And that's one of the great things about being a grandparent is you can just kind of watch. You can take an overview of who they are. And so when they left, I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to write a book about this. And I sat down, and 4 days later, the book was done. And so it just happens that circumstances, if COVID-19 was not around, would I have done this? Probably not. But the circumstances gave me the opportunity to kind of pull it together. And so that's how it came about.
Who you have any favorite authors?
I like a lot of authors. I like to read a lot of autobiographies and biographies because I guess it goes back to my love of entrepreneurship. Is when you read about people and what they've come through and how they've succeeded in life, that really is my biggest interest. So if you took a look at my bookshelf, you'll see a lot of autobiographies and biographies on there.
You ever watch Shark Tank?
Yeah, that's great. You ever think about going on?
I've thought about it, but I don't think that I'd be ready for it.
Grandpa's an inventor and has done a lot of very interesting business things in his life.
So why don't you and Brandon team up and let Brandon be the face of the company on Shark Tank?
Brandon, I think, is
makes sense.
More idealistic than I am. He is, acting is his thing, and
that's why he'd be perfect for the pitch. Just get the script, rehearse it, get a nice suit. Be like, my character is Chet Manley, expert salesman, and then
Yeah.
I'd love to go
to Mark
with Brandon.
Cuban.
Grandpa invented pretzel cones.
Brandon.
Probably never heard of that.
Oh, wow.
Other things, but Brandon is
great.
more, I would say, more intellectual than I am. I'm more business oriented.
Yeah, which speaks a lot to Grandpa because I'm not very smart, but
You're into Shakespeare and whatever.
he's into me. Yeah, what was I gonna ask? Do you it's interesting, because the pen name is obviously just for the children's book, right? Gramps Jeffrey, but do you ever think of expanding your roster of business books? Like, do you have two different personas that you try and sell stuff through? Like, how does that all work?
Well, my goal was, the book I wrote was The Secrets of Retail and How to Buy Food Walmart. When I was in the internet business, I was going to write a book, The Secrets of the Internet, How to Beat Amazon. But I never wrote that. I never got done.
You would get a lot of clicks. You would get a lot of downloads.
Yeah, exactly. So that persona, that would be my next book. But now that I'm a grandpa, I'm going to be into children's books.
Gotcha. And who does your art, and how did that process happen of finding the designs? And
it was an artist. She did the whole thing. So I was able to find someone who kind of could see the same vision that I had. I gave her the pictures of the kids and the different circumstances, and she pulled it all together.
And you were talking about legacy before. What would you rather be remembered for, children's author or this sort of business stuff?
I think I would rather be remembered for being on the cutting edge of the internet. So that's probably what I would prefer to be remembered. But hopefully I don't have to make that choice.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You just have both.
Fine.
What? Oh, do I have anything? I mean, I got stuff. We hit a lot of stuff, and you said a lot. I mean, I guess you're from Ohio. You went to school there. You got a graduation. You moved to Arizona. How'd you end up there?
Well, my early part of my career as in retailing. In retailing, you move around a lot. So I have been from Ohio to Florida to Mississippi to Wisconsin to Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C., and finally to Arizona. It's just the kind of business I was in. For the opportunities, it was all over the country.
Are you having, it's kind of off the subject, but are you having a big issue right now with the drought and heat, or not so much in Arizona? I know California's having issues.
Well, it was 113
Oh my God.
today.
Well, that's fine.
So it came back. We finally got some rain last week, but the drought is killing us. Yeah, it's
Drought,
killing
that's what I
us.
thought.
But yeah, we're having the same problem, same issues you are, except it's a little bit hotter here.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I've never even felt anything over 100. I don't think outside. I can't imagine walking.
If you've been in a car, maybe.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get used to the heat here, but after the first couple of years, it became it's the summertime. We were in air conditioning. I don't have to shovel any snow. In fact, when I moved here, the first thing I sold was my lawnmower because we don't have grass, we got
yeah.
snow.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
so that was the first thing I sold was my lawnmower.
No lawnmower, no snow shovels. That's the dream right there.
That's right.
So what do you do when it's over 100 degrees? Like what is the culture
You gotta-
like in a super hot state?
You get a picture. What do you do during the winter when it's too snowy out? You're inside your house mostly, but here there's swimming pools all over the place. People go swimming all the time, but you stay out of it. You just stay out of it. If air conditioning was never invented, there wouldn't be a Phines.
Yeah.
So,
Do you actually use air
It'd be on
conditioning or
fire.
is it air coolers?
I have air conditioning, but there are air coolers because air coolers, after you get close to 100, they don't
'Cause
work.
I lived in Palm Springs for a short period of time, and I remember there were coolers. They didn't actually have air conditioning. I don't think they did. It's been many years ago. But
Yeah, that's a big business here.
Did you raise your
Air conditioning.
family in Arizona, or this move was afterwards?
The two of the kids were still in school when we moved here to Arizona. So they graduated high school here.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then one of them stayed. The other one moved.
do you think we're going to get these issues that we have right now, the real difficult issues in the world, with regard to the COVID, with regard to our relationship with China, these different issues? You're a business person, so I'm sure you're very aware of all these things. Do you think we're going to come out okay?
No, I really don't. I think it's going to be a while. I think this COVID thing is going to drag on for another 18 months, just because you've got so many people unvaccinated. I mean,
Have you ever considered that it could mutate to where the present drugs we have for vaccination would not be effective?
well, I was so impressed how quickly they came up with this last vaccine that I think it'll happen again if that happens. I think that again, that generation is smart enough to figure this out. So I'm not.
How
really
do you
worried
feel
about
about them not allowing children, I believe under 12, to be vaccinated?
I think they should.
I do too.
I think all these kids. I think everybody in this country could.
I
be
mean,
vaccinated.
when we were
I
kids,
just can't help
we
it.
had to get vaccinated.
I think I still got my
So
scar.
do I,
Yeah.
from smallpox, I think it was. And so
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
are they not allowing children 12 and under to be vaccinated? I don't understand that.
I think they still just
Because
don't
we
have
can't-
the data. They don't have the data to suggest. Well, I think part of it is that they don't have the data to say definitively this is safe for children, and I think the other part is that you can't get get children to what is the word? Like you can't test children. I think isn't it like considered inhumane to test children?
First we can't hit them paddles, and next thing you know we can't test them.
Now we can't test them.
Jesus.
I think that's the issue, is that they can't test it. Like nobody can say, I'll just sign my kid up and best of luck, Jimmy Joe, and I hope it works for you.
It's like a tiny human. It's like a perfect test sample for regular human size.
But it's crazy that they're sending all the kids to school, but also won't let them get vaccinated.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so this thing's going to go on for another 18 months. It really is.
How long will I be 23? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, it's okay. Hopefully they go to school. I mean, they got to learn. They're supposed to be smarter than us anyway. So I don't know. No, I get it. No, they probably should be vaccinated.
That's according to Gramps Jeffrey, and I find it very interesting because most very, like a boomer generation silent, it's like a lot of like, oh, the kids these days, everybody complains about the younger generation. Even my generation, millennials, talk so much, whatever, bad stuff about the Zoomers, Gen Z,
Haters.
So it's cool that you have a positive perspective.
Gramps, you were so upbeat when you first got on the show.
Yeah, you guys are bringing me down.
You know what, Brandon? I'm going to tell you, ever since I found out on the show that I was a Zoomer and not whatever you guys are, my life hasn't been the same.
Really?
I thought I was right on the cusp on the millennial side, and ever since then, I'm just like, wow, these are my people now.
Yeah, huge generational divide. It's pretty crazy.
Running Bitcoin scams and
For real.
getting BBLs and living their best life. That's me.
Living my best
And what happens is you start to mature. Your 20s going into your 30s, all of a sudden you start to grow up. So the question is, at what age is this latest generation going to grow up? I think it's going to be sooner than later, because I think that we now have an information overload, and you guys know a lot more than I ever knew at that age. So I think you're going to mature faster than we did, and you're gonna get us out of a lot of these problems.
I don't know. I'm worried about sort of the built-in addictions of being like a kid these days, as opposed to, I can't imagine being in my 20s without the internet or a smartphone or social media or any of these like dopamine rush whatevers. Like, it seems just so much more freeing to like just have the world, and we'll never have that again. You're one of the last people in civilization that will ever not have those things, and now you do have them, but I wonder how much like.
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm thinking of a bad
say
joke.
it, fine. I miss your bad joke.
Well, you used to be able to hit your kids. If that was your joke for me. I'm sorry.
Every time. Every time. It's always back to beating our kids.
Yeah, don't you think that COVID really helped you mature much faster than you?
Not Phines,
Yeah,
but
so much. Not Finest. Everybody else.
Yeah, for you to go through that crisis, don't you think it helped you grow up a little bit?
yeah, but I wonder. I don't know. It feels to me like a year lost. Like yes, there's been so much like maturity and things that are different now, but I wonder, am I going to look back in 10 years with like trauma? It's a very traumatic time,
All I learned from this pandemic is that I can literally do and be anything I want.
That's good. That's really good.
That's really good.
Because there
Yeah.
are grown people out here in this world trying to inject bleach into my veins, trying to tell me that I just need to spray light into my mouth and my eye holes just to cleanse it. And I told you guys before you came on, I was talking about I think it was the governor of Arkansas today who said, gee, I really wish I hadn't put that mandate ban in place. It really would have come in handy right about now. And he's just a whole governor. I can do whatever. The sky is the limit. The sky is truly the limit. Nothing can stop you. Not a plague, not logic.
Is there any
So
relationship?
if you think about it,
Is there any,
go
ahead, I'm sorry.
Sierra, if you think about it, would you have grown up that fast if you didn't have to go through this experience? Is that something you may have realized when you turned 30?
I mean, there probably would have been something equally dumb that I read that would have made me go, wow, all right, but I would have been, I don't think I gained a whole lot from this. I mean, that's not true. I may not have been here on this podcast if not, but plague or podcast, I don't know.
What a hard
Maybe
choice.
this is the butterfly effect. Someone went back in time and like kicked a rock, and now there's a plague, and I'm on Grandpa and show.
Yeah. I mean, Gramps Jeffrey, you're such a positive person, and you seem very fulfilled and happy, And I was actually having this conversation with a friend only a week ago, who was he seemed like he was in a very bad place, and he was like, how do you even be happy? And I gave him like a 20-minute thing of what I thought, and then I was like, yeah, I have no idea, at all. I mean, there's like a science to it a little bit of, be healthy and sort of eat all that kind of stuff. But yeah. What do you think makes you happy, Gramps Jeffrey, or anybody, people?
I think it's how you view the glass half full or half empty. And I think if you view it that, there's positive things going forward, it helps you with your happiness. If you always look at the negatives, if you always concentrate on, oh, I got screwed, or this happened to me, and woe is me, then your life is going to be woe is me. So you got to kind of brush that stuff off and think about, okay, here I am today. I've had this failure. I've done this. What can I do to make my life better? It comes down to dwelling on the bad things. If you dwell on the bad things that happen to you, because we all have bad things happen to us. I mean, we can always list a bunch. You're not going to get ahead. You got to kind of slough them off, and and go after the good stuff. It's like if you're a baseball player, you can't worry about yesterday. You got to worry about tomorrow. If you screwed up, you struck out 3 times. You can't dwell on that. Or a basketball player, same thing. So you've got to be thinking about the future and say to yourself, I may have screwed up, I may have gotten screwed, but here's what I'm going to do moving forward.
Yeah. This is a question, a little bit of a sidetrack, but that I've been wanting to ask for like an hour. Do you guys remember the first time that you saw your first kid and the first time you saw your first grandkid? And like, what were those experiences like, and were they different?
Well, my first time with my kid was a false alarm. So, my wife was pregnant. We were waiting. I happened to be in New York on a buying show. We're working with vendors, and she calls me. She says, it's time. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I jump on a plane. I get to fly back. I lived in Miami at the time. I flew back to Miami, and I rushed to the hospital, and it was a false alarm.
Damn.
So I went back up to New York, and then it happened again. So it was anticlimactic, but my first one, it was like, come on, let's go already. But it was great. And that was my son. My son is the detective. He was the first one out. And so that was a great time. Luckily for the birth of the first 3 of each one of their kids, we were lucky enough to be there. So it was kind of fun. And to watch their reaction. And again, you step back, it's their time, it's their moment, but you can really share it.
I don't think I'm ever going to have kids, but it's crazy to me that you made a person who made a person and you were there. Like, very trippy. Yeah.
Kind of off the subject a little bit, Gramps. I was a national vendor for Office Depot, one of their products, and I had some disappointing things happen. Have you had along the way with your business interests? Have you had issues where the rug gets pulled out from underneath you or anything like that along the way?
Oh yeah, I mean, how many times did you get fired? I count on my hands. That's the way life is in business. Yeah, I've had the many times, and so I think that's what drove me to the idea after working with all these huge companies that I'm going to do it on my own. I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to control my own fate. Because when you work for some of these larger companies, you wish you could control your fate, but you don't.
Yeah, what's that song? I never promised you a rose garden.
I never promised you a rose garden.
What about in business though? Wherever times where you felt like maybe you would never succeed and you were about to give up?
Oh yeah, yeah. I started a chain of hair salons here in the in Phoenix area. I started with one and built up to 11. But along the way, there were many sleepless nights where I wasn't sure I was going to make payroll that week, or you're not sure that you're going to be able to pay the rent that week. And so, those are the heartaches that you live with when you're an entrepreneur, because it's not all automatically you get sales. So yes, I've got plenty of sleepless nights that I can account.
Yeah, and fortunately you weren't in the business now with the COVID, in the restaurant
Oh, yeah.
business. Or I see these large chains folding up, several of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I mean, it's been really hard. Large chains, yes, but mom and pop shops, which is sort of what your book was about. I mean, so many small restaurants have closed, and yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, you kind of wonder how they're going to evolve. What are they going to do? What kind of work are they
Right.
going to do? So that's the thing of our society, is we got to take care of these people. We got to be able to give them the opportunity and to be able to give them the loans to bounce back and do this. 'Cause, they'll pay off. These entrepreneurs, they've got a real spirit, and all we have to do as a country is to encourage them and give them a little bit of helping hand.
Well, what concerns me, and I guess I'm kind of getting political right now, maybe I shouldn't, but the fact that some very large corporations are paying very little taxes. I remember when I was a kid, during the Second World War, the highest interest rate was on personal income was 91%. And it wasn't too long ago that the corporate tax rate was lowered rather than raised, and we're in what some people have described the COVID as like a war or a battle, and we're spending an awful lot of money, and yet we're not bringing it in. The interest rates, if we raise the interest rate at all, it's going to be tough on the national debt. I'm getting way far away from what we're really talking about, but that I have a concern about that. And the three richest people when I was a child were worth $1 billion, which is like $15 billion today, and now you have people worth $150 billion, and it just seems like the whole tax structure is somewhat unfair. And you're a business guy, so you're kind of sort of on both sides of that issue, I would think.
No, I agree with you. I mean, everybody needs to pay their fair taxes. I mean, we have to. We can't, this divide, we can't let it keep going. We got to even this whole thing out. You're absolutely right on that.
I guess, Gramps Jeffrey, have you, maybe like personality-wise, have you seen more people in our generation acting entitled, or it's about the same or less than when you guys were in your 20s?
All my kids are in your generation, okay? And I can tell you that they are smarter than I am. I can tell you that they're working harder than I thought I could work. And what's interesting is their spouses are the same way. So and the interesting thing is all of my kids have said to me, I don't want your help. I'm going to do this on my own. Right? So that's your generation. That's why I have faith in your generation. I mean, I'm seeing it up close because I see them and I see their friends, and they want to go out and make it for themselves on their own. They don't want anything handed to them. So I guess from my little world, I don't see that.
I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're getting close to time. I have been wanting to ask you, you've done it a little bit, but like pieces of advice that you would give someone, a small child that could read your book today, and then also pieces of advice for us. I don't know, for the millennials, and with all your wisdom, both grandpas can answer this, honestly.
I would say that I would want to make sure that my kids show compassion. Okay? Because again, children are listening to their parents. They are mimicking their parents. And all I want is my kids to give a positive world for their kids to learn from. And we all know, we wish every marriage was just perfect and everybody was getting along, but it doesn't happen 24 hours a day. But kids pick up on that. They repeat it. When you think about it, how many times have you seen these little kids pick up something and pretend it was a phone because they're seeing their parents on the phone all the time? And it may be a block, it may be a truck, but they're mimicking their parents. So my word of advice would be for your generation to just keep in mind that your kids are going to mimic you. So set the examples for that. And my generation is to support what you guys do. Don't do things different than what their parents tell them to do. Support you to do that. So that would be my advice for your generation.
Have empathy for others.
Yeah.
We always do last thoughts on the show. I'd love to go around and get last thoughts from everybody. Maybe could do Sierra first.
I'm so glad that we were finally able to get you on, Gramps Jeffrey. Folks, parents, padres, read to your kids, read to your grandkids, read this book to your grandkids, give them that quality quiet time that they will cherish and help them grow into well-respected members of society. Love it.
Phines?
Thank you for coming. I enjoyed this, Gramps Jeffrey.
Grandpa?
Well, it's interesting to me that you're a successful entrepreneur, and you've sort of shifted into a different psychology or a different type of interest in life with writing your books, and I really enjoyed having you on as a guest. You're a very bright person. Thank you.
And then I would say I read a lot of your stuff before the podcast today, and something that struck me, which full circle, is the compassion that you have, because I've tried writing before, and the hardest thing is to write characters that are different from myself, and I can't imagine writing small children, because I don't know, it's like something I'm always trying to get back to, is that like childhood innocence kind of thing, right? And you're a year or two farther from that than I am, but I really like your work, and I think that it translates to who you are as a person. So it's been a total pleasure. I know we went all over the place and stuff, but like the core, it was much appreciated. Gramps Jeffrey, last thoughts.
Thanks. I think what you guys are doing, where you've got these different generational things talking for a long while. I mean, it's not like it's a 10-minute show. Can you imagine in this country if we were able to do this throughout this country? Can you imagine if we could take pods of just what you guys are doing, where you talk for an hour or 2 hours and just bounce things off each other? How much of a better understanding we would have as a country? So how do we duplicate what you're doing? What can we do to have this going on all throughout the country? Because it's going to make things better. And so I appreciate you.
I would say
asking
follow
me.
us on Twitter, Instagram, share this.
Support the Patreon so we can have more guests just like you.
I don't know. It's cool. I just know that I had this with my grandfather, and it seems like it's such a niche thing that we found a crossroads of, sort of like work with a grandfather and a grandkid, sort of creating something. It's pretty interesting, pretty cool. But loved having you on. Thank you so much. Please tell our guests where they can find you, where they can find your work, the titles of your books, all that stuff.
Right. The title of the book is I Don't Want to Turn 3. It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and you can get it on Target online. If you want to take a look more about the book and myself, you can go to the site idon'twannaturn3.com. So that's another way to find us. And anybody wants to email me, it's grampsjeffrey@gmail.com. We're glad to continue the conversation.
Thank you so much to Gramps Jeffrey. Thank you so much to our amazing co-host Phines, our amazing producer Sierra. Grandpa, I love you. We'll see you all next week. That's our show.
Thank you.
Podcasting with Grandpa Bart and Rosie, always on his shoulder. This is Grandpa and Chill.
Grandpa and Chill is brought to you by your hosts, Brandon Fox, Bart Frank, and Finest Jackson. Our producer is Sierra Doss. You can find episodes old and new on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch the show, and follow us on Twitter for behind-the-scenes moments you can't get anywhere else.